Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. You guys just saw followers um, here at Terminus. It is 9:25 Eastern. For those of you on the West Coast, feel free to grab some food, a drink, and learn some fun information here. We're here with Ryan Justice and Ian, both producers of the film you just saw. Ryan, I believe, directed as well. And are you guys there? You guys come out from hiding. Yeah. How's it going, guys?
Hey.
Hey, bravo. Awesome film. And congrats on all the success it's had so far. How are you guys doing today?
Very good. Very good. We're over here in Florida. So it is 9:30, just about over here. So
awesome. You guys, would you like to really quickly introduce yourselves? Just let us know who you are, where you're based, what you do, favorite color.
So my name is Ryan Justice. I am director producer. I directed and produced Followers with this guy Ian. I competed in Campus Movie Fest starting in 2008, all the way through 2011 at USF. Then for the past 7 years, I've been running my own business, doing videos, commercials. We just finished wrapping up production on our second feature film that we will tease at the end of this Q&A. With you guys will be the first people to see the trailer for our newest movie, The Wild Man.
And I'm Ian Longen. I am also in the video production business. I primarily focus on producer role and cinematographer. I was the cinematographer for both Followers and The Wild Man. I also work in this area and produce a lot of video content, as well as work on various feature films. I met this guy through Campus Movie Fest back in 2012. Yeah, pretty much ever since we've been working together.
Yep. And yeah, so we're right out of Tampa, Florida. So
all right. You guys are really old. Thank you so much for
so old.
staying up
People
late.
were like 2012. I was in the 8th grade.
Wow.
Yeah, I just want to point out that this is CMF's 20th year. Happy birthday, CMF.
And I remember you guys were so excited about number 10, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, cool.
Yeah, most of the folks.
I think I was in number 7, 2008, and you guys were so excited getting the USF for the first time.
Yeah. I did it from 03 to 07. So repping the shirt today. For those of you who don't know, my name is Vikas Shah. I'm a creative director at Ideas United, which runs Campus Movie Fest, which runs Terminus, but also an old school Campus Movie Fest participant from way back in the day. And it's #1 fan. So yeah. Just a reminder, this is a Q&A. There's a little button at the bottom of your Zoom screen that says Q&A with little speech bubbles on it. Feel free to use it liberally. Ask as many questions as there are on your mind. These guys are here to educate you or give you insight, give you maybe you'll open a door you didn't see coming yet, and hopefully you'll all learn a thing that can help you in your careers and get you to the next step as well. And if not, it'll just be a fun story to listen to. So yeah. So Followers, great film. Why don't we give us a little bit of a summary of when it was made and what it's done since then?
So it was about 6 years ago, September 2015. Ian and I were sitting in my apartment late at night, kicking around ideas. Like, we've done all these short films. We have a lot of freedom. Like, how do we make our first feature film? We did all the Campus Movie Fest stuff. We've doing all these music videos, and we were kicking it around. And we're like, okay, well, what resources do we have? We were both fans of found footage movies, or at least very clever found footage movies. We were sitting. It was like probably about 2 a.m. and we were like, okay, what if we came up with like a social media thing? How could we tie in M. Night Shyamalan with Tarantino, right? And make a found footage movie. And that's why Followers is a non-linear found footage movie for the people that watch it. If you didn't watch it, it is available on Amazon Prime. So we kicked it around, and then we pitched, we asked another producer about, hey, would you want to partner with us to produce it? Another producer is Jason Henney. And this was all the way in September 2015. So then we already had a couple of the actors in our mind, Nishant Gagna, who we'd been working with since 2009, who is a part of a couple of our Campus Movie Fest projects and a former employee of Ideas United. So we kicked it around. We had like 3 of our 4 main actors already picked out. We didn't shoot the movie until April of 2016. We got the cast together. We shot for about 12 days, 8 days.
It was like 8 days at
Yeah.
first, then we went back and did like 2 more days.
Yeah, we kicked it around. We had like a loose script. We knew we trusted all our actors, and we had all the cameras, we had all the gear, we had all the good sound equipment. We trusted Nishant and Sean to play the villain type characters. Justin Mena, who is our lead good-looking guy, was a constant person on HSN, doing a whole lot of fitness videos and selling ab workout machines, but he really wanted to get in acting. He gave it 110%. He was like, hey, I knew this girl who just moved into town, and we were putting on a big casting call for the female actress. We had social media influencers auditioning. We have one girl who's on some MTV show now. She actually did an audition, but they never felt grounded in the role. And it couldn't be a slasher film role where the girl had to be campy. So we needed to be grounded in reality. So the guy and the girl actually had a friendship. They knew each other going into the movie. So our entire cast already knew each other. So they had a built-in rapport that helped out, because 90% of the movie is improv. So we had to, Nishant and Sean Gloria. Sean Gloria, you'll be able to see him on Star's new TV show, Black Mafia Family, in August. He's going to be a recurring character in the first season of a 50 Cent's new show. But Sean and Nishant had such a built-in rapport over the years that I could literally give them the camera, the audio gear, and I sent them 2 miles deep into the woods, and they just came up with different little like sequences and little scenarios where they would act off and do those scenes that they did. I wasn't even there for some of it. I let them just kind of go give me some footage, go give me some, know your characters enough and go. So yeah, and that's the thing. We shot it in April. We finished it up in June. Our lead, Caleb, actually tore his ACL. He's an American Ninja Warrior. So he tore his ACL. So we shot like 8 days in April. And then the biggest scene of the movie, when they all are in there by the campfire and he's getting kicked around, the biggest scene we had to postpone to almost June. It was the day after the 2016 Terminus that we shot. And I drove Nishant and Sean all the way from Atlanta to us filming the next day. And I was there at 2016's thing. And we had to film this scene because our lead was getting surgery within the week. And he's like, I got to get this. We don't film this scene, I'm going to be put up for like a couple of months. And we may never finish this movie. To get Nishant's schedule and everybody's schedule together. So we ended up finishing it in June. Then in November, American Film Market. For people that don't know what American Film Market is, it's it takes place in Santa Monica in November. It's like one big conference of all the buying and selling of movies all across the world. People come all around the world. They set up a hotel. It's Lionsgate's there, just all types of distributors. So we were able to give it to a sales agent that we had built a relationship with for over 6 years, who trusted to take our little movie, and within 72 hours had sold it to 4 different territories around the world. So without even the movie being completely edited yet.
It was just on the trailer.
Just on the trailer and the key art. And then it released in theaters a year later. It was in Walmarts across the country. And yeah.
Awesome.
So we shot the movie 5 years ago. 5 years ago, last month, April. So we finished it about 5 years ago. So it took from filming it to release in the United States almost 2 years. So when you're choosing to make a feature film, understand it may not release for 2 years. You might be with that film psychologically, physically for a lot longer than you expect.
Yeah, and you're probably having to hold down a few freelance gigs at the same time, I'm sure.
Right.
What do you guys do when you're not creating feature films?
So I do a lot of corporate video. We're actually doing this inside my studio here in Clearwater on our psych wall. I do a little psych wall here. And so I do a lot of stuff. We just actually helped shoot a new little TV show that's going to be airing on a Roku channel called American Stories. A lot of corporate stuff. Just shot a commercial with ex-Bucks Derek Brooks a couple weeks ago for an energy thing. A lot of different things. Every week is different. It's fun. I from industry to industry, we're filming an Indian wedding this weekend. So it just varies. The one thing is I always tell people, and I preached this 2 years ago at Terminus, was like, I've done a lot of jobs, and the secret is any day you're making money using a camera is a good day. And I wouldn't trade, doing any job with, being able to do video production stuff, because you're constantly creating, you're constantly, you're telling stories.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to feed you a question that came in from our audience. First one we got here is asking about, did you use any of your favorite directors for inspiration in shooting any of the shots from the films? I know you kind of mentioned Shyamalan, Tarantino, but is there anything in terms of the way that you, the way that you actually shot it itself, like any kind of directors that you took inspiration from, or even any saying cinematographers, beyond that?
I would say some of the things that I've taken from other films that where we got to use in this, and if you rewatch the film, if you rewatch the film from the beginning to end, you'll see the other guys behind almost in every shot of the movie. So there's a detail there. So if you rewatch the movie from the beginning, you'll see the two guys, the guys that are following them in almost every single shot. They're there in the scene. Their white van, the white SUV is driving back and forth that they're in, and I love that kind of type of detail. And it's not a horror film, but one of my favorite, franchises is the Naked Gun trilogy, where there's so much detail. The more you rewatch those films, you'll see more and more things show up in the frame. You're like, oh, that's a joke. That's another thing. Like, look at this in the background. And I always love that, is like being able to rewatch a film and be able to see something new. And I used to tell people, I'm like, rewatch the film and you'll see all that stuff. Because a lot of people will be like, oh, well, that came out of nowhere. I'm like, actually not.
Yeah.
It was there.
That's very similar to like what M. Night does. The replay value when you rewatch his films, you're always like, oh man, everything was right there the whole time. It's just, can you pick up on it?
Yep.
And I think we tried to take a little inspiration from that.
One of the biggest things that we knew going in is we didn't have a lot of money, right? So the cheapest thing that you can do is get good acting and good story, develop an interesting story, because that's cheap, that doesn't cost anything to really take time with the story. That was one of our biggest things.
That's a great segue to our next question is, how did you fund this thing? What did you guys have to do to actually pull enough money together to take what it took to actually film for 12 days?
Bank accounts.
Yeah. So
we self-funded.
Yeah. So there's 3 producers. We each put in our money, and we knew going into the film that we could, if we decided to go the traditional route of going to a sales agent, we knew we could make the money back. Maybe if they sold one deal, maybe we could make our money. Or let's say nobody wanted to buy our movie, any distributor, we could maybe self-distribute, because it was something we always thought, oh, this would be cool, we could self-distribute. But then we're like, okay, well, we made this movie for such little, for under $10,000. Just FYI, guys, we made this movie for under $10,000, and it released all over the world. So we knew going in, and then once we got done, we're editing the movie, we're like, you know what, let's go the traditional route. Let's see what happens. Let's go through the process of going through a sales agent, going through a distributor. So now for this new film that we just did, we're already, we've been planning all this stuff for the entire year. So like we've learned a little bit, but honestly, like anything, you continue to learn new things. It's an ongoing, educational process being in the film business.
Yeah. So you guys mainly, you said there was 3 producers, you guys kind of just bankrolled the whole thing. Was it just kind of a lot of like money saved from freelancing, or
whatever we had? Really?
Yeah. I mean, we kind of pulled together and said, all right, like what are the resources we have? How can we develop a script around the money we have?
Right.
This is all the money we're willing to put forward, and how do we make this work? What are the actors that we can trust? What are the actors we know will kind of, for Ryan's coined term, go to war with?
Yeah.
And then locations, what kind of locations can we, do we have, and which ones don't require a ton of permits, or, $2,000 a day in rental fees, like some of the locations we just shot at for the new movie. You just figure that out, and then we go, okay, let's build a script around this, and then, okay, we can't have a car blow up.
Right.
It's too much money, so let's do something different. And you just kind of cater to what you have access to.
And the other thing is, like, we have the cameras. A lot of us, we already have the cameras that we needed, right? We used GoPros. We used, so at the time, I think it was the A6300.
Yeah.
We used the Canon 7D. We used a drone. And then once again, this is 5 years ago. We also, I think, the DJI Osmo thing that was like an automatic thing that would like turn. I don't know if anybody uses those things anymore, but we used a lot of different cameras. We knew our story that we were shooting allowed for what I like to call technical flexibility, meaning it didn't have to look beautiful. So we knew we didn't have to light things. Now, have we produced projects that we love our lighting and do all this great cinematic things, but in the days we knew this story, we had to be moving, right? The story allowed us to not have to be pretty and fancy with everything. And it helped with the story, it helped with the realism of everything, of like, maybe this is real, So
Yeah. And to that end, for those who saw the movie, you probably noticed that, the actors were also the cameramen and women. So
that was
I'm curious to know, did you guys have to train them at all, or give them any instruction beforehand, or were they just they just knew what to shoot?
Well, it was great. Obviously, Nishant and Sean Gloria have a camera background. Nishant filmed almost every scene. Was it 2 scenes he didn't film?
Yeah, the cult scene I filmed because we only had like one take at it, and I was like, no. It's funny because like we learned from that, even is like we tried to set them up with as easy type of maneuvers as possible. Like, okay, this is just very basic. You're walking, you can handle this, or you're in a car, you can't really mess this up. Any of the really, really technical shots I took over and then just acted as the cameraman. Whereas like in our new film, I shot the entire thing and I was the camera person, even though I wasn't actually on screen as the camera person. I had somebody standing behind me who was the camera guy acting. But there was a lot more technical aspect to the newest film that we did as opposed to this. This could be a little more nitty gritty and kind of dirty. So it was okay.
The toughest thing was, I guess, the couple, they didn't have as much camera experience. Nishan has a lot of camera experience. So he says, he's shooting on the 7D. He knew exactly, I didn't have to babysit him. Sean Gloria could shoot some stuff. And honestly, like, it helped that we could trust our cast and crew, our cast, to go out there and film stuff, and and make sure we were getting good enough content, because a lot of the stuff we didn't know until we got into the edit room what we exactly had. We had an idea on what they were supposed to shoot, so we didn't know until we got into the edit room a few months later. It was okay, cool, this works, this works, this works. This doesn't work anymore. Let's edit this out and let's move. Because originally when we wrote the story, it was going to be like 30 minutes with the beautiful couple, and then like 15 minutes with Nishant and Sean in the middle, and then the crazy twist ending. Then everybody's like, actually, what's interesting is that when the camera flips and you realize Sean and Nishant are following them. So we tightened that up. So now you follow them longer, because people thought it was more interesting being on the hunt than the being hunted. So like, okay, now you're learning more. So that was something that we figured out in editing and showing people, like, oh, that's when things start getting interesting, because now we're seeing this from a new perspective. You're learning more stuff that, oh wow, they were there the whole time. So that was cool. That's something we kind of figured out in editing and showing it to a couple people. At one point, honestly, you were asking how many times we've seen this film. I mean, we watched it several times before, and next we sold the movie, watched it a few more times, and then it was out in the UK that following summer, and then we got to see it when it came out in theaters. Luckily, they had a Tampa screening, a Miami screening, LA screening, and I got to see it in the big theater, like an actual real theater, not a film festival, but a theater. And it was kind of cool. We didn't see it a lot with theater, like actual viewing people, like sitting in the seat. So it was a little unnerving because we didn't know what worked. Now the newest movie we've watched dozens and dozens and dozens of times so far. And that's why we're constantly editing it constantly. We're just about done.
Awesome.
So.
Well, I got another question from our audience here. They would like to know, what was your biggest hurdle in making the film? And I think that, think about in your answer, all of from pre-production to the editing process that you guys were just talking about. Like, and if you have an answer for all three, even better, from pre-production to production to post-production. But I'd love to kind of just know what if you could both have a different answer, that's fine. What was the biggest hurdle for you making the film?
I mean, production wise, I would say the location. Like, we chose a very secluded location. We literally walked 2.5 miles every single day, one way. So we were doing like 5 miles with gear, and it was hot, tons of mosquitoes and stuff like that. So like, and then like getting, meal break out there. I mean, it was pretty tough. We learned from that, going, oh, cool, if we're going to do woods again, let's do it where we can be closer.
Right. And so the majority of those camp, it's right outside USF. Nobody knew we were out there. They knew we were out there. We just went so deep, and we made a whole movie out there. Nobody else was out there. So we shot through the night.
We rented a camping location.
Right. And
we paid for that.
But nobody, since so far as like primitive camping, so nobody was out there. So we just kind of guerrilla filmed it. Don't recommend doing that. But we did what we had to do at the time. And that was grueling. So once again, like, we had 4 actors and really just 3 crew people. It was me, Jason was running sound, Ian's overlooking the camera stuff, and then directing, So we only had 3 crew, 4 actors the majority of the time, until the last couple of days with the cult members and the girls. We had a little bit more crew. We had special effects, makeup. It got a little bit bigger in those days, but most of the time it was 7 of us out there.
But that scene, the bigger scene, we were at a house.
Yes.
And literally, like, if I turned the camera around just 90 degrees, you would see the house right there.
Yeah, and you see
in somebody's
main road.
backyard. We were able to park right there. It was a lot easier.
Yeah, you saw a main road right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
What was the other thing? I said the production.
Yeah, I mean, post-production, the most difficult thing is, and it's something we probably should have known better, was getting, so once you sell a film, there's deliverables, okay? It's, hey, we need your copyright. We need your chain of title. We need a dialogue list. Look up what a dialogue list is. It's literally typing out every single word that is said in the movie. Because, hey, we sold the movie. They're like, okay, cool, that's great. Before we send you all our money, we need this big list of things. And we're like, oh, wow. And then before that, we hadn't LLC'd the movie yet. So our sales agent's like, okay, great. Where's where would I send the money to? And we're like, okay, we'll be right back. And we went to the website, LLC to business, followers the movie LLC, and then we had to fill out a contract, because it is the strangest thing. I knew my sales agent for over 6 years at this time. Trusted him, a good guy. But I tell people, choosing a sales agent, choosing a distributor can be a lot like finding a babysitter, right? You're interviewing a babysitter. You got to treat your distributor like you're hiring a babysitter, because this is your film. This is what this is your baby.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will just give their movie away to any distributor. Oh, here you go. We want my distribution deal. Get me on Netflix or something. But it is a scary thing when the sales agent or the distributor is like, okay, great, we'll take the movie, or we'll take it. Here's the contract. Sign over your film. And you're like, oh, this is actually a big deal. So that was a big thing. Is okay, cool. We had to sign over we had to sign over our film, and now this guy has all rights to sell it and do all that kind of stuff. So that was a big step. And after selling the movie, it's getting all those little details together.
So
right?
do it while you're doing production. Like, put somebody in charge of, getting all your releases signed and just having everything you need. Like, have that being done while you're on production and while you're in post, so that when the movie's ready to go, you could literally put a hard drive and all the files in the mail that night if you needed to. Just be ready for it.
That's great advice. In terms of choosing your babysitter, your distributor, what kind of things were on your checklist that like, the ones that you chose? What allowed them to pass the test?
Well, we didn't get to choose our distributor. We chose our sales agent, right? And the sales agent has the built-in relationships with the distributors. So the sales agent goes AFM, makes the deals, and he chose a distributor. I'd never heard of the distributor at the time. It actually was out of Miami, and it was a small distribution company. It was a small sales agent company, and we're a small little movie. But we were actually the distributor's first theatrical release, so they treated our movie like their big movie. So that was a cool thing. Small boutique sales agency, small boutique distribution, small boutique movie. So it all kind of worked out, and it worked out because we've built relationship with that distributor now. We have conversations. So that's what awesome too. We made this little movie. We sold it to this distributor. Now the distributor and I have a relationship.
Yeah.
It's opening doors.
Well, one thing to realize with distribution is, unless you've got a really big film and you're known and you've got name talent, like real name talent, the deals tend to be terrible.
Right.
And if you're signing on a sales agent, you need to be very upfront about what deals you will take and what deals you won't. And that needs to be pre-decided, that they're okay with saying no to a deal or coming to you first with, hey, Ryan, I got this deal. These are the numbers. This is what it's going to be. Are you cool with that? Because sometimes when you sign over something to a sales agent, you're kind of signing them, power of attorney, if you will, and they can do whatever they want with it, because ultimately, they want to make money. So they might sign you up for a deal that doesn't do well for you, but makes them a quick buck.
Right.
And now you've just lost your film for 7 years. But if you have a contract with your sales agent before they take it, and it clearly states what your parameters are, you can avoid some of that headache. We knew our sales agent on a personal level, so we weren't worried about that going in. Granted, we did have a contract, but it's something, realize, like, a lot of times you're going to get these deals that sound great, but they're not great.
And that's another thing. Going in, you have to have realistic expectations, right? A lot of people coming out of college, like, oh, cool, I'm going to make this $1 million, drama with no names, all my friends. You have to be realistic. You have to treat your movie like a product in a way. It sucks, but it is the business of the show business part, and understanding what a market is. So we knew we could make this little horror film with a hook. When I could pitch the film, it's about two social media influencers that go on a camping trip where they don't realize two guys are doing a documentary on how quick it is, or how easy it is to track somebody down on social media and kill them. Like, I can pitch that movie and people are like, I want to see that. So that little nick, I didn't have to have big stars in that film, and it sold. And what's funny is now here we just made a movie that with more budget. And at this time in COVID, it's harder to sell. So a lot of people go make a $500,000 movie because somebody gave them money, but not treat the movie the way it should be, and maybe get some name or recognizable names in the movie. And then really that money is gone. Like, you're not going to get $500,000 on a movie with no names back.
Yeah. An indie drama with no names, you're not going to get it. So be smart about what you're making.
Right.
Use your resources, and also realize that your first couple of movies are not going to be good. They're not. So, like, what if you have this like huge idea in your head? I say it all the time, I hear it all the time. Somebody's like, I got the next 7. I'm like, no, you don't. You don't. And if you do, you shouldn't do it yet.
Yeah.
You should hold on and hone your craft, work on it, sell a couple movies. Because this is the beauty of the business, is if you go sit down in a pitch meeting with an investor with a lot of money, they're going to ask you, one major thing is, what have you done? And the second thing is, how much did it make? They want to know, what was your last film and what was the return on investment? We can, go forward and say, hey, we made a movie for this and it, 10x'd the investment. We can say that, and now the investor's not going to be worried about, like, oh,
do they care about making my money back?
Right.
Or are they just artists trying to make an art piece film?
Right.
They
understand you're a business person.
Right. And that's what you have to kind of, because that's what you're dealing with a lot of people. Once you have investors in, or you're working with money, is you have to treat that money with respect. And that's something you have to learn with the business, is figuring out, what kind of filmmaker do you want to be? What filmmaker do you want to be? Do you want to do you want a career? Because a lot of people make that $1 million movie, they never see a dime one. They're, their entire family donated $1 million to them, and they're crowdfunding, and they didn't put anybody. They put their best friends as the lead character, and that movie will never see the light of day. So that's what you just have to be careful. You have to think. You can always, when you're developing a film, they always say, reach out to a sales agent, talk to a sales agent about, what you're in the beginning before you shoot your movie. Who's your team? Who do you have in it? Like, how can you get somebody to be in your movie for 10 or 15 grand? We got a recognizable face name, in our newest movie that I recognize. Not many people might recognize, but he's in one of my favorite 80s movies. So we have him in the film. So it's one of those things is like $5,000 or $10,000 more to put a name in your film is like hedging your bet to sell the film. So,
well, to get to the next question, in the spirit of always making a better movie than your last one, what's the biggest thing that you learned on Followers that you've applied to The Wild Man, your next film?
One of the biggest things, and this works mainly in the genre that we're working in, is never paint yourself into a corner. If you're doing this kind of thing, like, don't be afraid to do additional takes or to try different things during the filming process, because you never know when you get to the cutting room what you wish you could have had. And I think we had a lot to choose from in Followers, but we went the extra mile this time. We're like, okay, cool, that was a great take, now let's do it more like this, just because you never know what the tone is. And sometimes if you're like, nope, that was the take exactly, we're done, you can paint yourself into a corner.
And then learning about maybe giving, we definitely learned even from this one is like, how can we plan more time? How can we give ourselves more days to film? And once again, when you have a budget and you're working on a budget, you can only have so many film days. Every DP, every director, every producer always wishes they had more time. Even Deacon says he wishes he had more time, but it's figuring out how to maximize those 12 to 14-hour days to get as much as you can in, quality stuff.
Pre-pro.
Yeah, pre-production, yes.
Spend more time on pre-pro than you think, double it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Sage advice. Another question coming in. With the emergence of streaming services and original movies, and all these platforms like Netflix Originals, Prime Originals, do you think it's easier today to distribute movies?
Okay, so it's easier to distribute, but it's harder to get somebody to want to buy your film. So that's where the market is getting weird. Is for a while, up until the last 6 months, you could actually upload your short film to Amazon Prime, or your film self-distribute on Amazon Prime. They just shut that down. Now there's a million places to show your film, but doesn't mean that a distributor is going to pay what is called a minimum guarantee for your film. So minimum guarantee is upfront money. A lot of distributors will say, oh no, we're not gonna give you a minimum guarantee. We'll split it on the back end. We'll take your movie and whatever we make, we split. And that sucks. It does. So that's what majority of the deals are. So a lot of these companies, distributors are cool. We'll put your film out there, and eventually, they'll do a Hollywood accounting. A lot of them, right? Hollywood accounting is pretty much saying, cool, you sold $100,000, but it costs us $120,000 to market your film, so you still owe us $20,000, and you never get a dime. And that's the scariest thing, because a lot of people blindly sign these deals. And once again, it comes back to the babysitter thing. It's very easy to call a couple filmmakers, because filmmakers will tell you the truth. Ask them, hey, how was it working with this distributor? How was it working with the sales agent? I've had other filmmakers call me, asking me and referencing my sales agent. How was the sales agent? Was he honest? Was he this? So call your references, ask for references from these sales agents, these distributors before you sign these deals. Treat it, once again, it's your baby. So
what you'll see on a lot of like quarterly reports or annual reports from distribution companies, if you're lucky to even get it, a lot of times you'll just see rounded out numbers. This cost $1,000, this cost $2,000. Like, I'm like, is this what you would send to the IRS?
Right. And so
there's no pennies, or so a lot of times it can feel fabricated, and you need to just be cautious of that. Harping on his point about, oh, well, yeah, you guys made 100,000, but it cost us 120 to make that 100.
So going back to those streamers now, yes, right. There's 100 streamers, but you got to remember. So a lot of people's dream is getting on Netflix, right? That's the new. So 10, 15 years ago, it was all about getting into Sundance, right? That was the golden ticket. Now everybody wants to get on Netflix, but actually, really, Netflix is sometimes not your best bet.
It's usually your last stop.
Well, the thing about Netflix is you could sell your movie for, let's say you make a movie for $1 million. They're like, great, we want your movie for 200 grand. They give you a flat fee. So now you're selling this movie for a flat fee. People can watch it 1 million times, but you're only going to make 200 grand, right? Now Hulu, Amazon, you're going to make transactionals. So 1 million people watch it, you're going to make $1 million, right? So Netflix is a flat fee, and honestly, it's hard for them to buy movies. They rather make their own movies from the ground up.
Yeah.
Or they develop films their own, or they have production companies developing, and they go to those companies. So Netflix is kind of pipe dream sometimes, and so it's hard to get on Netflix is cool, and it'll help with prestige, but may not make you millions.
Yeah, unless you're getting in on the ground level, you're pitching Netflix your idea,
right?
And Netflix is like, oh, we love it. What's your budget? You tell them the budget. They're producing it, and that's a good way to make.
Yeah,
money.
they know they have all their computer algorithms. They know exactly what actor is getting them. Yeah, they know exactly how many people are going to subscribe and watch this movie with X actress and X actor. They're going to put it together, and yeah. So yes, it is the wild, wild west of streaming sites right now. But it makes it fun, and we're one of our sites that we wish we could get picked up on is like a Shudder, right? Shudder is actually, as of right now, rumor wise, is paying more than Netflix for content for certain horror films, certain indie horror films, because they want those niche horror films for their site. So that would be a fun one to be a part of. That's one. If instead of Netflix, I would say, hey, you know what? I want to be on Shudder.
And real quick to further talk about your point when you're saying oh, you made $1 million film, and let's say Netflix offers you 200,000. And when I was saying that's usually the last stop. So movies that you see that maybe were in theaters at one point, the route of their distribution was they sold the film, they probably got an MG for it, minimum guarantee. It went into theaters. It was in box office for 4 weeks. It made a bunch of money. So now they paid their money off, or their budget off, and made some money as producers. And then it goes up on iTunes, and it sells on iTunes, and it rents, on Amazon Prime and stuff for another month or two, and they make a little bit more money. And then they show up at Netflix store, and Netflix cool, we'll give you another 200,000, and we get to keep it for a year. And it's just extra money. So it's great in that sense, but you don't want it to be the first stop necessarily all the time, because that's where you'll run into trouble. Unless you make a movie for 50,000 and Netflix is like, yeah, we'll give you 200.
That's right. That's different. That's a lot different.
So it's project by project based. Whether it's smart to go straight to a streaming platform or not, or self-distribution, right, or what.
Like right now with our newest film, we're considering maybe we should just do a drive-in tour with our newest film in the US. That's what things we're considering.
Just keep all the money.
Right. It's our money.
Yeah. Before I get into a couple of other questions that were just submitted, I would be kind of curious as to we're talking obviously some bigger numbers, $50,000 to make a movie, maybe $200,000 to make a movie, $500,000 for people coming kind of out of college, and even in your sense of kind of funding and the film yourself, what do you what other advice do you have in terms of someone who's just coming out of college? You might not, in terms of trying to create that feature film and the best places to put your money. I know you talked about locations, actor, story.
Right.
Any other thoughts in terms of how some of this works with with maybe a bit more micro budgets rather than
okay,
figures?
Yeah. So we made Followers.
Yeah.
If you really want to know it, we made it for $5,000.
Sure.
We made the movie for $5,000. We made our short film Scoops that was 5 minutes long for $2,000. Okay.
That was with
so-
CMF. That was the CMF
Yeah,
film.
Campus Movie Fest Scoops 2010. So to put those put that into scope is, instead of making another short film, we wanted to start our careers in feature filmmaking, right? So we're like, okay, listen, what do we have? So if you got cameras, you can make a movie, right? It's figuring out what are those cameras, can those cameras tell a story that allows those cameras to be, used, right? I mean, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, not everybody had 4K cameras. Now, just about everybody has a 4K camera. Yes, there, look, he's got a 4K camera. Look, 4K camera over there, over there, over there. So it's like, it's one of those things is, find a team. You got to have a team too. The movies is the only art form you can't really do alone. And if you're doing it alone, it's probably not a cinematic film. So it's one of those things is you got to figure out who do you want to make the movies with. And I learned through Campus Movie Fest, right? Using the resources that you have, right? You have 6-7 days to make a film. How do you got to pre-plan it? It becomes a big competition, and you got to figure out who do you want to make the big movies with, right? So I always say, make those short films, make those small projects, because I consider short films and projects like dating, right? Because a feature film, like I said, can take 2 years. You're learning and you're seeing if you want to be in this marriage with somebody. I've been in marriage with this guy for 9 years. So, but we made short films and music videos together. So I was like, cool. I'm like, I remember telling somebody, I'm like, cool. I like these guys. I could make the big movie with, right? I can make the big commitment with, and now we've made 2 feature films together. So figure out who your team is. That's the biggest thing, because once again, you're going to war with these people. They have to trust you, especially if you're the director. They got to believe in you, right? Especially if you're going to make a movie for $5,000, you can't pay everybody. That's the biggest thing is getting a good group of people that have strengths that you have weaknesses. So figuring out that team is so important to move to that next step, because I mean, going to film festivals, going to networking things, putting yourself out there. So like, and then once again, relationships don't blossom overnight. Like my sales agent I met in 2010, Nishant and I were taking him out for a beer. Nishant was pitching him some idea, but we didn't utilize that relationship for another 6 years down the road, but it was building those rapports over years. We didn't have a feature film to give him, but when we did, he was ready for it and went the extra mile, sold our first feature. It's one of those things is like, prepare yourself. It doesn't happen overnight. Believe me, those first couple of years after Campus Movie Fest were tough. We're like, okay, cool. Well, when's our next film? You're high right now. So I was saying 2 years ago at Terminus, I'm like, everybody's super high right now. You get your film. Now we're virtual, but everybody's in Atlanta having fun. There's going to be that weird moment when everybody graduates. Maybe you're not feeling as high. You're not making that film, but like you got to stay hungry, right? You got to figure out who do you want to make that next movie with? There was a good year and a half, mode after college. And I was like, man, like, am I still making movies? Am I still a filmmaker? So I haven't made a movie in a year. And I'm making corporate videos, but you have to, you got to stay hungry. You have to keep putting yourself out there, keep going to the film festivals, keep meeting new people, and eventually, keep making the short films. And eventually you use those skills that you used in Campus Movie Fest, and you can go make that feature film. And that's what we did with Followers. We used the same exact team that we used, in our 2010, Campus Movie Fest film in our feature film, and boom, we started our careers that way.
And then on the other side too, be realistic about what you want to do. Like do your research. What is working right now? What are movies like? Go on Netflix and see what's popular.
Right.
See what's being streamed at the highest rate every week, and that's where the market's going.
Yeah.
You can never really, you don't have a crystal ball. You can't tell what's the next hottest genre or trend. But try to, don't do something that was popular in 2015. Look forward to something that's new, and something, maybe a story you've never seen done or told in a certain way, which is what we try to do with Followers. Is like, I don't know that I've ever seen a non-linear found footage movie. Let's see what that's like.
Yeah.
And then be realistic about your budget and find people that are better than you to surround yourself with.
Yeah, and it was a collaboration. If you would have told me in the shot 10 years ago we would be making a found footage movie as the first feature film we ever did, I'd be like, no way, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna do this big $1 million movie, and it one of those things is sometimes And one of the biggest things is like, sometimes your career is not exactly the way you plan it. Because like your life is not the way you plan it. Sometimes you're going to hit some roadblocks and you have to adapt and move. Like we thought after Followers, we were going to do a couple other big projects. People were pitching us bigger projects or bigger budgets, and it didn't come to anything. So then, here we're in the middle of COVID in 2020, and I'm just living by my computer. I'm emailing producers, and I had met some investors and some other producers, and I reached out to them. Hey, listen, we got 5 projects we want to do. Threw them all at them, and then they're like, "Oh, okay, you got anything else?" And I threw in this one little project that we've been kicking around for like 4 or 5 years, almost 10, almost really. And it was about the Florida Bigfoot, the skunk ape. And they're like, "We like this. You're telling me you guys can shoot it in the fall?" And yes, boom. We made another feature film. It wasn't the film we wanted to make at the time. It was a movie that we could make at the time, and they wanted us to make it at the time, so we did it.
Going back into the actual film itself, let's take a step back, and we got a technical question, or kind of a technical question here. What were your favorite shots of Followers to shoot?
Well, Stefano was actually in a couple of Campus Movie Fest projects of mine. I don't know if they're still up there, but it was fun. So some of the funnest things were, I like little subtle moments of Followers. I was even telling him, like, "Oh, I love this little scene." It's the opening. One of the first shots of the movie is where the camera's on the counter, and all you do is you hear her, and you find out that she's cheating on the good-looking guy. Cut scene, boom, he's proposing. It's one of my favorite things in the movie, because like if everybody's paying attention the first 10 minutes, everybody's like, "Oh no, we hate her. We don't like her," and it's there's nothing to it, right? Literally, the camera is looking at a French fry, but you can hear it. So if the audience is paying attention, you're going to hear, "Oh wait, she's talking to another dude, and she's cheating." And then cutscene, this guy's planning on proposing. So okay, we're not supposed to like her, and that was fun. And obviously, the next cutting thing, there's a great behind the scenes photo of me trying to show the girl how to cut Sean's neck. So that was cool. It was the craziest, most stress. And then technically the other neck cutting scene too.
I love the GoPros, the throwing of the GoPro.
Yeah.
So simple, but creepy. He
Yeah.
just holds it in front and then just chucks it.
Yeah.
That was definitely Ian's thing. It was like, he was like, "Oh, we've never seen that. Like, we can use these GoPros. That's a kind of a cool thing. What if he just takes it, just throws it?" And like, we'd never seen that in a found footage movie. So that was kind of cool. So
yeah. And I'm guessing most of the GoPros and the 7D and everything that you use in the movie were practical, right? They're those actual things you filmed on.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely the GoPro, even it's spinning. We threw that GoPro. Yeah.
Well, hope some of your budget covered insurance. Next question we got, and I think this is a big. I mean, this is probably a question that everyone's going to answer a little bit differently. But how do you preserve your art in a business-oriented industry? You guys are talking about so much about these numbers and all these deals and trends and following, like trying to follow what is profitable and things like that. But like, how do you, at the end of the day, preserve the art of filmmaking, like and tell your story, the story that you want to tell?
It's compromise. I think a big thing is like your style. Like that's what sets you apart. Like there's so many, if you see a Deakins movie or you see a Nolan movie, like it's a Tarantino movie, it's so obvious that it's their movie. Even if you walked in the middle of the scene, you just know whose it is. Fincher. I mean, just like they've developed a style, and eventually you get to make, you get sought after because of your style. So but you got to make compelling stories that sell.
I think one of the things is that Ian and I've always talked about in the beginning stages, like how really we talk about how do we take a story and put mix up the genres, or we flip it, or crazy ending, or so like with Followers, look like a crazy twist ending at the end, non-linear storytelling. It's trying to figure out how to put our touch on something that's different, and like that's the art to it. It's like, okay, cool, we're gonna make this film that's pretty much has a niche audience, like found footage, right? But how do you make found footage your own? And that's what we tried to do, right? With the newest film, it's a Bigfoot movie, but how do we make it our own Bigfoot movie? How do we put style to it? How do we put a little bit of our our, sprinkle some stuff on it and make it something that we're proud of, that says people are like, who the hell, what, okay, this is different. That's what we like. We like, so a lot of people at the end of followers, they'll have a little bit of a dialogue. They'll talk about it. We want, it's controversial. The reviews are polarizing across the internet about it. And we love that because, wow, it got people thinking. I mean, some people will write an essay on it, and I'm like, that's funny. Cause I mean, that was cool that somebody wrote like a whole thing on it. And that's fun. Like you getting people to think that, once again, story is so cheap, but if you can make something interesting, make people think, that's fun. And then eventually, you make a few movies and they reach some people, and then maybe, you get to make a movie that's even like 100%, like maybe let's say 80% your style, what you truly want to make artistically. And that's what you're striving to get to. So, because nowadays it's tough to start right off the bat with your Bottle Rocket, or, Christopher Nolan's movie, was a Knowing. So it's like one of those things, it's just not the same industry as it once was, where you can just go make an art house piece and get it Sundance, and Redford puts your movie up, and then, you're a superstar. So you gotta kind of have to
It's give and take.
play the game a little bit.
It's give and take, and eventually one day, maybe you get to do everything you want. You have final cut, and you can do that.
Yeah.
So
And once again, staying in it, keep the momentum going, keep making the projects, because eventually, like, if you're true to yourself and making the projects, not, it's one thing, we as much as we like, the artistic side and the business side, really we are still coming from an artistic fan of movies side of it, knowing, okay, cool, we can do all this stuff, but how do we keep the business side in there? We got to be smart, because we want to keep making movies, because if you don't make money, eventually people will stop giving you money. The next thing, you're broke filmmakers. So that's something we have to keep in the back of our heads at all times, is, okay, cool, this is cool, but how, will this sell? Will this, is there a business to this? Because at the end of the day, it keeps it going.
So in terms of, you guys mentioned having a style that's very distinct. Like what's your, obviously there's experimentation, but how do you find that style? Like, what are some ways that you found your style?
Well, not in this specific film, but I'm hoping to, there in the next film, you'll see some of the trailer. My biggest style, and I want to go on into future films, is I'm a huge fan of the 80s. Okay. Tony Scott, Joel Schumacher, I'm huge fans of those guys. So going forward, I love the style of atmosphere and, dreamy pictures and all that kind of stuff. And I hope going forward, I get to utilize that style more. Hopefully in our next project, we'll know here in the next few months of what our next project's going to be. But hopefully I can tap into what my visions and my styles, truly are. But I like telling stories about people in extreme situations. Always something I've always been drawn to. Seeing movies, I'm like, okay, ghosts are cool, psychological, but I like when you put a person into an extreme situation that the audience then asks themselves, what would I do in that same situation? Because they can relate to that person. And then, so I make followers. That was a big thing. I'm like, what, originally, I was playing with that Nishant was going to be the lead guy in the movie and be like the boyfriend. And then we twisted it. I'm like, because like Nishant would be like the everyman. So that's why I was like, okay, well, how would you react? I love that stuff. Like there's a couple movies back in the day, like The Ruins, Straw Dogs, stuff like that, where you put a person that everybody can relate to into that situation. And it makes you question, like, well, would I do that same thing? Would I give up, or would I, fight or flight? And I love seeing that, because you relate to it, because it makes you question. You're like, okay, like maybe I would. I don't know. So that's always been like, when it comes to like that storytelling, I like to keep that in the style. Although lighting wise and cinematically wise, I couldn't do that with followers.
What about you, Ian? I mean, you're a cinematographer. Like, how did you infuse your storytelling sensibilities and your style, so to speak, into this film? And like, how did you even develop that in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, so with followers, a lot of it was just like, it was almost like you had to kind of take a step back, from like traditional cinematography, and like, composition and stuff. Like there's a drastic difference from Followers to the Wild Man, where we got way more technical and like, okay, let's light this, like, even though it's natural, like we're gonna throw colors in there and we're gonna, do some cool stuff. But with Followers, a lot of it was like, I just was trying to think about what would it look like if it was just somebody that bought a camera, off Amazon or whatever, and we're out there just trying to document, for fun what they were doing. So I think there's a style in like in the realism of what the camera's doing, and you also have to, with this genre, have to justify the camera. Like, would the camera really be going at this time, or would you just be like, nah, that's okay, I'm gonna keep going. So, it's constantly battling with that. But, we were able to do some cool stuff with like, throwing the GoPro, which looked kind of wild, or the POV shots that were interesting, or, putting a camera light, even just a basic camera light on top of the camera, just added like a creepy factor to some of the night stuff. So with like anything that was like creepy in the movie, it was just trying to see like, does it look creepy, when you're looking at it? Does it feel like they're in a desolate wooded area? And how can you make it look as off-putting as possible? So
and what cameras did you end up getting to use for in the Wild Man?
So we shot with a Canon C300 Mark II and a Canon C300 Mark III. And we shot with some DZO lenses. They've got some nice Pictor, a set of two, so they were zoom, which was kind of fun. We also had a Canon, I think it was an 18 to 80 millimeter servo lens, like ENG style. So that was kind of fun to work with. And then we did a ton of lighting, like every scene has some sort of lighting. So we were able to work in some kind of more traditional narrative cinematic looks to it, but try to keep it feeling found footage or documentary-esque. But sometimes like the compositions are like, okay, that's a little, it's too nice.
Yeah.
But we wanted to step up the visual quality of things. Yeah, so it was fun to shoot with some bigger cameras on that one.
Nice. Well, we only have a few minutes left. A couple more questions I want to get to, but then I'd love to preview the trailer for the next film. But kind of looking beyond that, Stefano has another question about whether or not you have another film coming up even beyond The Wild Man. I think you kind of mentioned that you're still kind of circling around that, but like, do you have anything on the horizon?
Well, there's a couple projects that we've been pushing around, or like kicking around for a few years now. I did a short film back in 2018 called Bright Lights, Dark Shadows, and it's a vampire film that takes place in the 80s. And it actually has Paul Wilson, Patrick Wilson's older brother, in it. And Paul Wilson's actually in the first like 10, 15 minutes of Conjuring 3. And it's something we've been kicking around for a while. It's a passion project of mine that I'm hoping we'll know in the next few months if some of the producers want to get involved and make that film. So that would be my passion project to do. So, and that's 80s vampire. So it's kind of Lost Boys meets Blade meets Buffy the Vampire.
Sounds fun.
So, yeah.
Nice.
Yes, we have a couple finished scripts that are, it's just deciding on what's the right move,
Right.
The next right move. So
yeah. Well, obviously, you guys have had a lot of success so far. You guys have worked hard for it, and you'll find the right thing with time. So, I'm can't wait to see what you guys do next. I think on that note, I'm going to just mention a couple of things. First of all, thanks everyone for your questions. These were awesome. I think this is an awesome discussion. And Ryan and Ian, I really appreciate all the answers and all the knowledge you shared with us today. Real quick, before we get into the trailer, I just want to make a couple of points and announcements and reminders. The Golden Tripod Awards are tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern. So make sure to go to campusmoviefest.com/Terminus once again to go stream those. And then before that, the Goldman Sachs Communicating with Impact workshop is going to be at 3 p.m. Eastern. So make sure that you bookmark both those things and make it there. And then again, one more thing before we get into the trailer, I would love to know, Ryan and Ian, for any, you guys mentioned, you know, networking, you guys mentioned asking questions to other filmmakers, putting yourself out there. For anyone from who's watching this who might want to ask a question to you guys beyond this, do you guys have a way that we can get, like, that anyone here watching can get in touch with you, ask your questions, pick your brain beyond this?
Yes. I'm pretty well branded. Justified Films. On Instagram, you can find me justifiedfilms.net. You can email me at justifiedfilms@gmail.com. Ask away. I like trying to share information as much as I can, because I know when I was in college, there were so many things I wish I would have known, or, you know, they don't teach the business side of film in film class. They just don't. There's the things that I could share with you guys for hours and talk to you about everything. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me, Ryan Justice, justifiedfilms@gmail.com.
Awesome. I'm sure that'll be a pipeline to Ian as well.
Yeah.
Because
we'll both talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you using that beard? That's what the question that everybody
Yeah.
wants to know.
Just Rogaine.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a perfect note to lead us to the trailer now. So let's take a look at that real quick, and then and we'll wrap this.
I'll do a little lead in real quick. So this is the Wild Man trailer. Only probably 10 people have seen this trailer. So this is pretty exclusive, secret sneak peek of this film. And yeah.
You want to see what it's about at all, or you want to let people?
Okay,
see?
so I'll give you a little stick. Okay, so it's about a group of filmmakers that come down to a small town in Florida, investigating the disappearing of multiple young women, and you know they're led to believe that it could be this legendary monster known as the Florida Bigfoot, also known as Skunk Ape, also known as the Wild Man, and leads to a bloody, deadly conclusion.
All right, let's enjoy. Awesome. Thank you for the nightmares.
Yeah. Don't go camping. That's our big theme throughout all our films. Don't go camping. That's really what it is.
I think that's the take. That's the message you'd like to send to the world, it sounds like. Well, awesome. I think that concludes our Q&A for today. Ryan, Ian, thank you so much again for sharing your time with us, and all your knowledge and all of your insights and experiences. And we'll hopefully see you again at another Terminus down the road, or at the Oscars, one or the other. Okay. And yeah, and with that, everyone else who did attend, thanks for being here and for asking such awesome questions. And we hope you enjoy the last day of Terminus tomorrow, again with the Goldman Sachs event at 3 and the Golden Tripod Awards at 8. Tune in and have a good evening. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.